Alright, howdy folks, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are taking another look at Isonzo, more specifically at some things I've noticed after playing the game for around 10 hours. I also want to talk about the crazy weapon I am using in the footage in the background, the Villar Perosa SMG/LMG. I have a lot of good but also bad things to say about Isonzo. There's just sort of a review of both the game and the Villar Perosa just because it's such an interesting weapon. So feel free to use the timestamps to skip to whatever interests you most. So first, let's talk about this crazy gun named the Villar Perosa, or VP for short. And yes, you've seen that right. This gun has 2 barrels and 2 magazines, and in reality, it's really just 2 guns welded together as they don't interact with each other at all. The VP is technically a light machine gun in the game as far as I understand, and this is because it has a bipod and can be set up for sustained suppressive fire. However, good luck trying to actually sustain any sort of suppressive fire when you have a 25 round magazine and you shoot these rounds at 12 to 1500 rounds per minute per barrel. This means that in basically a second, you can fire all 50 rounds from both barrels, and then you have to reload before you can fire again. Now, Isonzo only allows you to use the right barrel when you are not deployed with the bipod, most likely for balance reasons, though I'm not sure how crazy the recoil would be when you have both barrels firing when you are not deployed with the bipod. The game has made this into an LMG, however, it could be argued that the Villar Perosa was the world's first real submachine gun. This actually only fires 9mm rounds, though at a blistering MG42-esque firing rate. Some sources state the weapon was designed to be mounted on aircraft for close supportive fire, whereas other sources claim these guns were always meant to be given to the infantry first, who would actually put them to use as portable machine guns in the mountains of the Alps. A very interesting setup was to mount a VP to a bicycle, Italian bersaglieri, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, aka Italian marksman, could transport the gun easier, though I'm not sure if this setup also meant they could use these as assault bicycles. So here in Isonzo, the players can use it deployed and fire both barrels, or fire it on the move, firing only the 1 barrel. However, in both instances, it's a 1-man operated weapon. Originally, the gun actually came with a shield to protect the gunner, which would also act as a sort of bipod. Originally, these Villar Perosas were basically defensive machine guns that came with a crew of up to 14, though I could only find one source who claimed that. Now, once the Italian army realized the VP was a good assault weapon in the trenches, they tried some things to make it more suitable for that role. One of these ideas was to mount the Villar Perosa on a wooden tray, and the soldier would then wear it around their chest via a leather strap, literally turning the soldier into a walking machine gun. Now, the Austro-Hungarians, who faced the Villar Perosa in battle, managed to make their own copy. However, they replaced the curved mags with straight 9x23 Steyr magazines. Now, I don't envy the poor souls who were issued with it, but the Austro-Hungarians apparently really liked the wooden tray idea, so they pretty much issued all of their local copied VPs named Sturmpistole, which literally means assault pistols, with them. A small side note is that the company who made the Villar Perosa actually made a single prototype to show to the British Army way back in 1915. This one was specially chambered in the 4.55 Webley round. The British rejected the weapon, so only one of these prototypes has ever existed. And then this other, maybe crazier derivative of the Villar Perosa has to be the Frommer M17. This consisted of 2 upside-down Frommer-style pistols arranged on a tripod set to take 25-round magazines in full auto. So now you know pretty much everything there is to know about the VP historically, and including some of the rather weird copies it spawned, to quickly talk about how it feels using it in-game. Now, with the blistering high fire rate, you can dump 50 rounds, or 25 if you're not deployed with a bipod, at enemies, which can make for some crazy moments. This basically makes you feel like a Terminator in World War I in the right situations. In an environment where most people have either a pistol or a bolt-action rifle, this feels like the equivalent of having a minigun. Granted, in full auto you do blast through those rounds, pun intended, very fast, but with careful management of your shots you can make your magazine last while getting plenty of kills. Now, setting up the gun can net you a whole bunch of quick kills, especially as nobody can really face you down as you host them with a fire rate of somewhere between 2400 and 3000 RPM between both barrels. The gun feels a lot stronger than the Madsen and is unlocked at the same level for the Austro-Hungarian side, especially in the deploy position where you get to fire 50 bullets versus the Madsen LMG's 30. Tap firing the Villar Perosa is very satisfying while basically keeping that panic full auto spray at hand for dangerous close range situations. Now we've talked in depth about the Villar Perosa. I want to talk about some of the good and bad things about the game. One of the major issues I have has to come down to the player numbers, which is technically two issues. First of all, the rather weird number of players on the battlefield. It's currently limited to just 48 per server. Hell Let Loose and Squad, though granted have bigger maps, but their cap is more than double at 100. Postscriptum has 80 now, but their goal is to get to 100 as well. And even though Battlefield 2042 was not a success, they still have 128 player servers. Really, anything below 64 players for shooters nowadays just seems rather weird, seeing as Medal of Honor Allied Assault had 64 player servers, and that game was released 2 decades ago in 2002. Now, the maps are plenty big and there is quite a lot of room to move around, and the lower player count can make large areas on certain maps feel really empty, which is the opposite of what you'd want from a World War I game, I think. The second part of that issue is the actual number of players that play the game. Now, when we open up my Reliable Assistant Steam charts, you can see that the game, which was released back on September 13th, so about a month ago, all-time peak of 4,160 concurrent players, which means there was over 4,100 people playing the game at the same time, has now dropped barely 4.5 weeks later after release to just 850 concurrent players as I'm making this video. That is a drop of 80%. And seeing as Tannenberg, the previous game by the same developers, had the exact same trajectory in player numbers, I'm really fearing for the life expectancy of Isonzo. I saw someone in the in-game chat refer to Isonzo as prone block simulator, and for some reason, for myself as well, going prone near any obstacle causes a lot of issues with the prone blocked message showing up all the time. And this has gotten me killed multiple times and is needlessly infuriating. I'm somewhat 50-50 on this next point, whether it's a positive or a negative. The game rewards aiming with rifles to be basically a one-hit kill all the time, and I really do like this aspect a lot as someone who plays more hardcore shooters like Red Orchestra 2, Postscriptum, Hell Let Loose, but it means that specifically attacking points is very brutal, and it can be super disheartening to get artilleried, machine gunned, sniped, or just simply one-shot rifled from across the map. Personally, for me, the real fun in Isonzo is the sub 30 meter range gameplay where both parties are in a trench trying to clear it out. When it's better to switch to your trench club as an assaulter or to charge with your bayonet, that's where this game really shines for me. Now, I do want to compliment the developers behind Isonzo on some of their amazing feats they have accomplished. The game looks absolutely brilliant, especially the atmosphere when fighting in the mountains. The Dolomites map specifically has stunning views and is worth experiencing in an empty custom server just to take in the views. It's also very refreshing to not only see a World War I shooter in a time where they are somewhat rare, besides I guess the developers' previous releases and of course Beyond the Wire, which has definitely barely any players left, like less than 50 as of making this video, but also to see such a unique theater with interesting fighting on hills, mountains, cliffs, but also trenches and even cities. I'm a little bit 50-50 as well on some of the sounds. Some sounds like artillery and heavier guns are amazing. Even the Villar Perosa sounds awesome. Rifles, however, sound very unsatisfying to use without much oomph, which is a weapon that most of the player base are going to end up using on most of their classes. In my 10 hours of playtime, I encountered one cheater, which doesn't sound like a lot, but he was like a Tasmanian devil flying and floating across the map, one-tapping enemies and then continuing running at more than 15 times the speed of other players. There is an in-game report button, though I'm not sure what it does or how it even works. In the end, Isonzo is a very pretty looking game that feels like a decent follow-up to Verdun and Tannenberg, and it's definitely the best of those three for me. However, if you're interested in playing the game, I think you're either better off buying the game now and getting to play with real people, or hoping for a discount during this winter/holiday Steam sale and pray that other people do that same thing. There is a roadmap with 3 updates scheduled, which thus far will include the German Empire as a faction, including new maps, more custom match options, and more. Further add-ons, which will, like the German expansion, be free, will include the White War, which was the battle for the higher elevations of the Alps, and an update called Solstice, which has no information as of right now. I do like this idea that the developers are trying to bring back players with free content updates, but instead monetize with cosmetic and purely cosmetic DLCs. I like the idea behind this system, which instead of locking maps and armies or factions behind a paywall, like a lot of other games do, however, if there will be enough players left, even 4 or 5 months from now, to fill more than a server or 2, remains to be seen. In general, I think Isonzo is a great game to play now while it has players, and there are not really any guarantees this game will survive, though I hope it will, as it's definitely been a very fun time waster, especially as I was grinding for the Villar Perosa for this particular video. With all that said, I hope you enjoyed this mix of a review of Isonzo, as well as a semi-in-depth review of the Villar Perosa, both in-game and historically, and I hope to catch you in the next one.